What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the W.A.D.E concept video form. And like we talked about yesterday, we are trying to really vamp up the content for the channel. And that means doing more of this, obviously sticking with the podcast, interviews, things that we're doing in the fitness world, stuff that I'm doing in my training. We're bringing it all to you. But as this week goes forward, we all know that Jon Jones is fighting Dominick Reyes, and we got to break it down. So I'm here to give you that breakdown and more. All I want you to do is make sure you like and subscribe to the W.A.D.E concept, and make sure you hit the notify bell to notify yourselves when I go live. That's all I ask. Without any further ado, let's get into this breakdown. Okay, so we're going to talk about basically the strengths and weaknesses of both Jon Jones and Dominick Reyes. We're going to start with the challenger, Dominick Reyes, undefeated, pretty much gone on a warpath through the light heavyweight division with one exception, which we'll talk about. But for the most part, he's done work. He's done what he's supposed to do, and he's beaten a lot of guys that possessed a lot of problems for him, and that's because of some of his strengths, and we'll talk about those right now. So Dom's strengths, he's got really strong hips, and this allows him to do a couple of things. It allows him to not only have a piston-like release on his strikes, so you see him bang that left hand, and it's sharp and it's quick, and he can also kind of play with that lead hand too, so he's popping the jab, he's fading the jab, coming over with the right hook, but it's all because of those strong hips, because sometimes you'll watch Dom fight, and he's not always moving forward. Sometimes he's moving backward, looking for that counter shot, and the way he's able to flip over his hips, even on the wrong foot, and fire that left off and drop some guys, a la the Chris Weidman fight, it's very impressive for a guy as big as he is to be that explosive. And we know he's a former college football player. We understand that his hips are probably, nurtured and made through that process of playing football for years. And that explosivity that you have to play football and be that kind of athlete has groomed him to be able to fire that off just like you'd fire off a pass if you're a quarterback, or fire off the line if you're a receiver, or in a back pedal like a DB. Yeah, we see the striking and how crisp it is, and we see him, able to be kind of bouncy in the cage, but that all comes from those flexibility and those hips and the strength from there too. So not only does it help him in his striking, but it also helps him with his takedown defense. And if you see, yes, Dominick does get taken down, and we'll talk about that. But when he does get put in bad positions, because he's so athletic, and this could be a detriment and it also could be a strength, he's able to either sprawl, or he's able to get his hands underneath, get those double underhooks, and raise the opponent into a position where he can then stuff that takedown. And you saw it again against Chris Weidman. You saw it a couple times in the Ozdemir fight, but again, we're going to talk about kind of what happened in that Ozdemir fight. But yeah, his hips, that all comes from those strength in those hips, and I think it's his best quality. Number 2 strength for Dom, he's a good scrambler. Look, Dom gets taken down. I know we talked about his strong hips, but I think he sometimes relies on those strong hips and his athleticism a little too much. And because of that, he's a great scrambler. I mean, it's easy to say that, yeah, Dominick gets taken down, but when he gets taken down, right back up. I mean, Ozdemir, you don't think that guy is going to take you down a ton. Utilized some great outside trips and got Dom to the ground a couple times, but he wasn't there for long. He got straight back up and got back to the position where he felt he was comfortable, either back to the cage, throwing knees in the clinch, or separating and looking to throw that left hand. So, number 2 strength, good scrambler. Okay, number 3 strength for Dominick, and that'd be his crisp striking. We just talked about it. The guy has pistons for left hands. He's creative too. It's not just his hands that he throws. Yes, he's got deadly power in both his left and his right. Mostly it's his left hand, and we saw him hit a deadly uppercut going backward against Jared Cannonier. Obviously, the straight left against Chris Weidman. He's done it to a ton of guys, but the thing that maybe is overlooked is his ability to kick, and especially facing a guy like Jon Jones, his ability to low kick. You've seen Dominick Reyes low kick guys like Ozdemir and send his leg flying. He did it against Jared Cannonier and stopped that forward motion for a temporary period of time. But those low kicks against a guy like Jon Jones, who, let's be honest, Jon's got some chicken legs. He said it himself. Those can be super effective, especially if Jon wants to come forward on Dominick. And Dominick does have an issue sometimes putting his back to the cage and kind of being stuck in an area. Those low kicks and kicks to the body, especially out of southpaw, if Jon's going to stand orthodox to box with him, those will be effective. And even if Jon goes southpaw and Dominick can get at that lead leg, that's definitely going to slow Jon down as he looks to maybe come in and get into boxing range with Dom. I wouldn't advise that, but that could slow Jon down. Now we got to talk about the weaknesses. And this matchup is interesting for a lot of reasons. It's because Dominick Reyes is kind of a wild card. The guy does a lot really well, and the same things he does really well, he does them kind of bad, if that makes sense. So We talked about he has strong hips, and those same strong hips that are his biggest strength are kind of his biggest weakness. Now, bear with me. It's not a weakness to have strong hips and be able to scramble out of bad positions, but sometimes I think that Dom relies on the strength of his hips and his athleticism to get out of bad positions, therefore sometimes putting him in bad positions. You look at the Volkan Ozdemir fight. I don't think he necessarily respected Ozdemir's takedown ability and his outside trips to be able to drag Dominick to the ground. He got taken down 3 times in that fight, I think. 3 or 4 times. Chris Weidman, overzealous Dom, throws a left hand. Chris Weidman beautifully ducks right under, grabs the double leg, and takes Dom down. Now, again, his athletic ability allowed him to spring back up to his feet pretty quickly in both those fights. But that same strength that he has to get back to his feet, you're talking about a guy in Jon Jones that doesn't necessarily allow you to just get back to your feet. We're talking about a guy that took down Daniel Cormier, picked him up into the air, took him down, had his hand on Daniel Cormier's head, patting him like it was his son. So you're talking about Jon Jones, the most athletic specimen we've seen at 205. I mean, this will be the first time that Dom's fighting a guy that's not only has a better reach advantage than Dom, but also has an athletic ability that can match Dom. So that first strength that we talked about, his strong hips, he can't just rely on the fact that he has the ability to scramble against a guy like Jon Jones, who doesn't really allow you to do so. If Jon takes you down, he usually keeps you there. So Dom's first weakness, he gets taken down. Can't do that against Jon Jones. He will continue to take you down and put you there the entire fight. This is a 5-round fight. Dom's never seen that in the UFC. Jon's going to be on him, all 5. Dom's second weakness, he's great at moving in and out of the pocket, sliding laterally. But when he finds success in his striking, especially in his left hand, he will stay kind of in that pocket, kind of in a range where he feels comfortable, because every fight I've watched, no one really takes the lead leg of Dominick Reyes. No one really tries to go at and try to damage that lead leg. And he has just like any explosive striker, he does tend to lean forward a little bit, engage distance, then reset, come back, and throw some crisp strikes. Well, Jon Jones, one of his greatest abilities as a striker is that front leg teep kick. And I do think with his explosivity, if he is limited by not having that lead leg, I don't think he'd turn and go orthodox, but I do think it could slow him down. And what I mean is I don't think he would use that lead leg to maybe kick at Jon, or be able to plant on the lead leg and bring the back leg forward to leg kick Jon, or low kick him anywhere, or body kick him. And also it slows down his ability to sprawl. If Jon comes after that lead leg, if it's already damaged, he can't really explode backward and fling those legs back, or even try to escape out of the side. Jon will have him dead to rights, kind of. So the second weakness for Dom Reyes is that lead leg being susceptible to the teep kick from Jon Jones, one of his favorite weapons. Third weakness, and I don't know if this is necessarily a weakness, but it could become one, and again, a fight with Jon Jones, Dom sometimes gets pushed up against the cage, and you watch it against guys that are really aggressive like Volkan Ozdemir and Jared Cannonier. Those guys pushed Dom against the cage multiple times and put him in bad positions, and it allowed a guy like Ozdemir to take him down a couple of times, where Jared Cannonier was looking to knock his head off, quite frankly, and got caught coming in because of it. I don't think Jon is going to be super overly aggressive to that point, but he is methodically going to try to push you into that cage, and if he does get you there, it's not a problem for him to take you down. And Dom doesn't necessarily want to be against the cage, but somehow he puts himself there a lot more than you'd think. So number 3 weakness, Dom getting pushed against the cage, that can't happen, especially not early, or it's going to be a very, very short fight. So we talked about Dominick Reyes' strengths, his weaknesses. What's the X factor? What's Dom have to do to take the strap off the guy that seemingly is unbeatable? The greatest of all time, in my opinion, and a lot of others, Jon Jones. What's he got to do? Well, number 1, Dom's got to be aggressive. Get in a space where Jon is uncomfortable. You saw Thiago Santos do it to Jon. Get up and really make him strike with you. Get up in his face, not too over-aggressive where Jon can shoot on you, but also not at a range where Jon establishes his range, establishes those teep kicks and keeps you at a distance where he feels comfortable with that 7-inch reach advantage. Get inside, get in boxing range with Jon. We know he's not the greatest boxer on the planet. He's getting better, and as his career's gone forward, he's gotten a lot better in his boxing, but Dominick Reyes does look to be the better boxer, the more crisp, polished boxer. Make Jon understand this isn't a 5-round, methodical, drawn-out point fight where he can show off his Muay Thai and he can show off his kickboxing and then he can wrestle you and get some takedowns. Make him uncomfortable and make him uncomfortable early. So notes for Jon Jones. I think at this point we all know what Jon's good at. He's very good at methodically wearing you down over round and round and round to the point where you either give him what he wants, you make a mistake, or he finds an opportunity that you weren't ready for, or something you haven't seen yet from him or haven't seen in a long time from him, and takes advantage because he has so many tools. I mean, Jon's got great ground game, great Muay Thai clinch, good kickboxing, great distance control, submissions on the ground, the most ferocious ground and pound maybe I've ever seen at that division. So it's not like he has a lot of weaknesses. We get what Jon Jones does well. So with that being said, it's really more about what's Dom going to give up? What are the weaknesses that Jon can exploit the earliest or the quickest or the easiest? In my opinion, that's looking to shoot on Dominick Reyes when he becomes over-aggressive. We've seen him do it against Volkan Ozdemir. We've even seen him do it against guys like Jared Cannonier, where he does tend to get a little over-aggressive if he gets hit and wants to get that one back, or if he sees an opening and he lets that left hand fire, if Jon can duck under, if he can slip, or if he can just use that to get into a clinch. We've seen Jon use inside-outside trips, pretty much every technique, suplexes, to get people to the ground, and I think he could take advantage of that if Dom is a little bit over-aggressive. Our number 2 thing we kind of already talked about, but it's kind of easy to see. Dominick Reyes leaves that lead leg there planted from time to time for Jon to just tear apart with those teep kicks, and Jon will do it. Look, it's a Jackson Wink staple. Attack the lead leg. You see Holly Holm do it. You see Jon do it. You're starting to see Aaron Pico do it. That lead leg is there. They're going to teep kick it. They're going to make you uncomfortable. It doesn't look the best. It's not the most pretty strike in the world, but it is very devastating. And for them to do that, it allows them to open up more techniques. When you don't have the weight to bear on that lead leg, you aren't as explosive. Now listen, if we have to talk about weaknesses with Jon Jones, we do have a couple, and they're pretty straightforward. Dirty boxing. Boxing in the pocket. Guys like DC, Gus, and Thiago Santos kind of took Jon to school inside that range where he's not necessarily comfortable. He has a lot of that kind of lean back and take a couple shots to get away. It does not necessarily the most technical escapes from Jon, but while he does get hit, he does counter that with his ability to shoot, get out of the way, reestablish distance, that reach that he has on almost everybody. I think actually everybody that he's ever fought. But if you get inside it and you make him uncomfortable and hit him with shots that he can't necessarily defend in that boxing range, that could be a problem for Jon. Another thing that's kind of obvious, but it's hard to take advantage of because Jon does so many things well, especially, again, distance control, is kicking at his legs, getting to those little chicken legs that Jon, again, he says he has them. Jon, don't come for me, man. I'm one of your biggest fans. I'm not trying to get the smoke from Jon Jones, but he himself will say his legs are chicken legs. And if you can get to those legs and again, eliminate some of Jon's explosivity, eliminate some of the tools he has. Thiago Santos, again, did a really good job of getting to Jon and eliminating some of his tools. So if you can get to those chicken legs, and Dom has a really good inside leg kick, especially at a southpaw, that could definitely cause some problems for Jon and eliminate maybe the explosiveness of his takedown, his ability to get away, his ability to use the teep kick against you. So those are things that you want to look for if you're looking at weaknesses for Jon Jones. And kind of the last thing, and it's not really a weakness, but it's something that you want to keep an eye on if you're a Jon Jones fan or if you're just watching Jon Jones in general. This guy is 32 years old. Granted, he's had a couple of years where he's had some things, you know, some supplements and some cocaine and some other things where he's not been able to fight for a couple of years, but Jon Jones has been doing this for a very long time. As a matter of fact, Jon Jones has been defending championships longer than Dominick Reyes has been fighting. So we're talking about a guy in Jon Jones that starts to possibly feel some complacency, especially doing it in the same division, wiping out 3 generations of contenders and kind of looking at his surroundings and going, well, what's left for me here? Could you see a little complacency as Jon Jones looks forward to the heavyweight division, big blockbuster matchups with Stipe Miocic, Francis Ngannou, maybe even Israel Adesanya, as crazy as it sounds? All I'm saying is Jon's been doing this for a very long time in the same division. Does he start to get a little bored? And does that complacency creep in? And maybe he doesn't think he has to work as hard. And we know Jon has sometimes not even had a training camp and just showed up to fights. I don't think that's who he is now. I think he's on a mission, but I'm just saying that's something to look out for. The way he's talking about Dominick Reyes and how this fight doesn't excite him and he's looking forward to possibly going up and fighting Stipe. Maybe Jon's biggest weakness is complacency. And that's going to be it for today, guys. I know, kind of a quicker video, but I love doing these breakdowns and I want to get more quality over quantity. I think I said that right. But yeah, I don't want it to be like this big 30-minute thing where you guys have to go and watch every little specific breakdown, but I want you guys to get the general idea before we make predictions. So that's our breakdown for Dominick Reyes and Jon Jones. Let me know what I missed. Let me know what you guys think. What's the X factor in the fight? That's what I want to know from you guys. What is the X factor for both gentlemen in the fight? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and this has been the W.A.D.E concept where we're not only debating everything, we're doing everything. 2020 is our year. We have these goals set up, and that's why yesterday in the live stream I was telling you guys so much about expanding the channel, scheduling, doing all that stuff, bringing you guys new content. It's because I love you guys to death. So thank you guys so much. I will holler at you next time. Make sure you like the video, subscribe if you like what we're doing, and take it easy. Peace.